We've just left Mitzpeh Ramon and we're driving down to Eilat for a few days. And I just thought that I would share some idea pertaining to the Seder. We're looking forward now to Passover, Pesach. And even though we tell the same story about the enslavement and the exodus of the Jews, we tell the story every year. People have been to so many Seders over the course of their life. I still think there's always a newfound relevance to the ideas we're discussing are eternal ideas, and they apply to the Jewish people. I was just thinking of one of them, and that is that as we tell the story of how the Egyptians turned against us, so we say by our shiur that the Egyptians acted in an evil fashion. The word evil is Russia, and of course it refers to all the terrible things they did to us. The Rabbi Soloveitchik says that it can also be read in the sense that they made us into Rishayim. They depicted us as being evil people. Now there's a big insight over there, and that is that throughout history, when the people did the worst atrocities to the Jews, they always tried to pretend that they were the righteous ones, and they justified what they did by proclaiming that we were evil. And they projected onto us all kinds of terrible behaviors, trying to give the Jews a bad reputation. And in fact, ultimately, it expressed itself in Christianity, deicide, that the Jews killed their God, and so on and so forth. As absurd as a claim like that could possibly be. And I think it has special relevance this year, the phenomenon of the nations, the people of the world, depicting us as evil. You feel every day with all the protests against the Jews. They finally found something that they want to latch on to us: genocide. The world just can't wait for that, because there's that intense guilt. They're the ones that did genocide against the Jews. That was the real genocide, and the world can never really deal with the guilt. So one of the ways they try to escape from it is to portray what better way than to say, oh, the Jews are no different. The Jews do the same things that they complain about. And thus, even though Israel is fighting a righteous war, one of the worst massacres, atrocities against innocent people took place on October 7th, and every nation would have to respond and go to war and more than defeat that entity which was responsible for such atrocities and which represents a threat to the world in general. So Israel's fighting a war for the sake of mankind. In the course of that war, the United States, England has said that no country fights as morally, tries to avoid civilian casualties as much as possible. However, they place their weapons, their fighters, and so on and so forth. In order to get to them, there's going to be collateral damage, there's going to be casualties, and every nation that fights has to deal with that. In World War II, the United States and Britain directly bombed German civilians, Japanese civilians, and it wasn't collateral, it was direct firebombing of cities. Hundreds of thousands of so-called innocent civilians were killed by the Allies, not to mention Hiroshima and Nagasaki, nuclear weapons. They dropped them on fully inhabited cities to break the will of the Japanese people. So in order that they shouldn't have to sacrifice, they estimated 1 million soldiers would die if they had to go in with a land invasion. We're not discussing the morality of it, but the people who did that are certainly not the ones that can criticize Israel in its righteous war, where it does everything possible to warn people and to avoid unnecessary casualties. So it all goes back, as we observe the Seder this year and tell that story, there's so many ramifications, there's so many aspects of it that are very, very relevant and very important. But it's very, very important for the Jews not to lose sight, not to be affected by those who condemn. Unfortunately, there are many Jews that go along with that leftist, liberal, anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic way of thinking by remaining firm, by studying the Torah, by recognizing the morality of what we're doing. This is a very significant thing at this time to give strength to the Jewish people. Am Yisrael Chai.